December. Welcome to BBC Newsline. It has been described today as a pantomime that the government is refusing to confirm what is widely known, that Stakeknife, the army intelligence agent within the IRA, was in fact the late Freddie Scappaticci. It follows the publication of the Canova report. It was begun almost a decade ago to investigate the activities of Agent Stakeknife, who was said to be responsible for 14 IRA murders, whilst also being protected and in some cases helped flee the country by the army. The refusal to be open about his real identity has for some called into question the credibility of the government's commitment to legacy. We'll discuss that more in a moment. But first, with what we learned in this landmark report today, here's our crime and justice correspondent, Julian O'Neill.
This was the last report, but probably not the last word on Stakeknife, the army agent within the IRA who got away with murder while on the state's payroll. And this is the man who cannot be officially identified as that agent. Freddie Scappaticci was Stakeknife, but the report doesn't confirm it, as the government won't allow Canova to say it.
It is becoming pantomime, and it needs to be dealt with. And I will not give up on this, and I'm sure the families will not give up on this.
The 160-page report lifted the lid on Stakeknife's double life. The army had a unit dedicated to running him, known as the Rat Hole, and his handlers twice flew him on holiday on a military aircraft to avoid police questions. Time and again, the agent was protected, more than those who could have been saved. MI5 was in right from the start. Having once claimed only a peripheral role, it was in fact closely involved in handling him. Canova says it could be negatively construed MI5 had attempted to conceal the truth, but there was no organisational cover-up.
Do I have reservations about some operatives within MI5 who culturally, as John's already alluded to, would not like the light to be shone, would not like that level of scrutiny? Yes, I do. And that's why we've narrated some of the problems and obstacles that arose. That was human behaviour within MI5.
Canova previously called for a government apology to Stakeknife's victims. It's yet to happen, but the Chief Constable is clear it needs to happen.
Apologise where an apology is justified, and here it is justified, and identify the agent Stakeknife. These are basic things, and there's lots of warm words about commitment to legacy and legacy families. Well, those warm words have to stand up to actions, and that's what I think both Sir Ian and I are asking for today.
Relatives of Stakeknife victims had attended the Canova press conference. Then it was their turn to voice frustration at the government.
He was protected in life and death. He's been given a level of protection that it's unheard of. It really is unheard of. I don't know of anyone that's been protected in the way that the agent known as Stakeknife has been protected and is continued to be protected. Even, I hate bringing money into it, but the government spent over 40 million on this. And a key piece of information is who Agent Stakeknife was, and they are point blank refusing to name. I can't see how that makes sense.
What you clearly saw today, and it's the first time in my career I've ever seen anything like it, where a senior police officers call out MI5 over their handling of intelligence issues. That's never happened before. Whether it'll happen again, I don't know, but it was called out loudly and clearly here this morning. In a way that was unique.
The report marks the end of 7 years of detective work. But the most basic finding of all, who was Stakeknife, has yet to be delivered. Julian O'Neill, BBC Newsline, Belfast.
Well, the Canova report has already been getting some reaction. The issue of naming Scappaticci as Stakeknife was raised with the Secretary of State at Westminster this afternoon. Have a look.
Does he recognise the important role that our intelligence services did play in securing peace in Northern Ireland? Does he recognise that the IRA were riven by informers? Does he realise the absurdity of maintaining the position that Operation Canova could not name Freddie Scappaticci as Stakeknife?
I think it's a position of the British government that isn't tenable. I think first and foremost, I listen to the families, and not only is it a ridiculous situation that they are adopting, but it's also one that is actually hurting the families. It's compounding the grief and the frustration that they have had over many years, but also today.
On Operation Canova's request to the government to name Stakeknife, I told Sir Ian Livingstone in August that, and I quote, "Due to ongoing litigation relevant to the neither confirm nor deny policy, namely the Thompson Supreme Court appeal, a substantive and final response to your request will be provided after judgment has issued in that case."
And Julian O'Neill is with me now. Before we talk further about Stakeknife, the report also deals with a UVF unit in Mid-Ulster known as the Glenanne Gang. What did we learn about that today?
That's right. Within this final Canova report, we have the overall findings on a separate investigation done by the same detectives, a sweeping review of the Glenanne series of murders by the UVF in Mid-Ulster and elsewhere in the 1970s. More than 100 murders were looked at, including the Dublin and Monaghan car bombings in 1974. 33 people were killed, including a pregnant woman. The review found no evidence UK security forces cooperated with the UVF. This is despite collusion claims which have existed for many years. But it said the UVF needed no help to carry out these bombings. It was independently capable of doing so. However, what it did confirm, and what we've known before, is clear evidence of the involvement of members of the police and army in a number of individual cases. Now, a good many of the Glenanne relatives travelled to Belfast to hear these findings today, and there was maybe a little bit of regret that it was all overshadowed by the Stakeknife stuff, but there is due to be a 500-page report on the Glenanne review published at some point next year, so these relatives, I think, will have their say on another day.
OK, well, let's turn to the broader issue of legacy, how it is dealt with, that process. What does all this mean for that?
Well, John Boucher is always forthright. He's a chief constable who does not shy away from entering the political arena when needs be. And here he was today in his natural territory of being outspoken. He and Sir Ian threw down a number of challenges. First, he says there needs to be a government apology, perhaps even at prime ministerial level for Stakeknife, and that's not happened. The government says civil litigation is in the way. Mr Boucher said today it was utter nonsense. Note the words, utter nonsense, to suggest that's a barrier. But I think the bigger issue here is around the policy of neither confirm nor deny and state secrecy in general in respect of agents who operated during the Troubles period. Now, this is not only preventing the identification of Stakeknife, but I think has potential big ramifications for future investigations at the Legacy Commission. So this is a battleground going forward, and Mr Boucher and the government are currently on opposite sides of the ring.
OK, Julian, thank you very much for that. There is also much more analysis of today's Canova report, the questions facing the government and a background to how we got here. It's on the BBC News NI website right now. You'll also, of course, find it by downloading the BBC News app.